I am gonna need someone to give me a shot in the arm because I'm so sleepy right now. Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel. This video is my Geekly Wrap-Up for the week of October 13th through October 20th. I know I haven't been doing these videos very long, but let the record state that this is a historic Geekly Wrap-Up video because this week I managed to read just one book. I know, it's kind of ridiculous. Granted, I do record the books the week that I complete them and not the week that I start reading them, but that does mean that there was only one book that I actually read to completion this week, and that was Magic in the Middle Ages by Richard Keechefer, I think, is how we're gonna pronounce that last name. And this is a nonfiction history of magic in the Middle Ages as a sort of technology and, hang on. Alexa's telling my tea is ready. Be right back. It's a very delicious s'mores chai that I got from David's Tea while we were in Vancouver. Anyways, where was I? Okay, yes, so Magic in the Middle Ages is published by Cambridge University Press. I read it as part of my spooky October reads, but also because I'm pretty sure that October was the month where BookTube was reading a bunch of books from university presses. It may have been September, in which case I'm just super behind, but hey, I don't really care. I'm just glad that I read this. So this is a nonfiction academic work of history about magic as a cultural practice, a means of assimilating belief, and also a practical technology since people were more concerned with the fact that magic actually worked and it was a type of power that was very effective, almost the way that we think of the scientific method in modern times today. It was just another tool that could be used for getting things done. I thought that this book was a really good example of how to do academic writing. I am used to reading more literary criticism when I read academic writing, so it was a little bit different getting to read something that was written by a historian instead. I did think it was a little short. I did kind of wish that it would go in depth more times, but I understand that that was beyond what the scope of this book actually was. And it did make me wish that I knew how to read in more languages because the author quotes a lot of German and Italian, particularly magical books, and I just kind of want to go read the primary sources, but I can't because I don't read either of those languages well at all. So yeah, that was Magic in the Middle Ages. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'd recommend it if you're interested in the history of magic or medieval history and literature. And that's that. I did want to give an honorable mention to a comic series that I'm reading this week. Normally when I read single issue comics, I don't wrap them up as part of these videos because it's really difficult to review them until I've read the entire story arc, which is then what gets turned into the graphic novel paperback bound volume. But I did want to point out that in Riri Williams' Ironheart, which I have been reading for a while now, there's actually a disabled superhero character that has just recently been introduced, and her name is Silhouette, and she walks with forearm crutches. So yeah, at this point in the story, Riri, who wears an Ironheart suit, has gone to Wakanda to try and figure out what's going on with this strange secretive organization that is trying to collect lots of power and cause mischief and mayhem. So she's teamed up with Shuri and with this new superhero Silhouette. So I thought that I would give that a shout out, especially in this month of the Disability Readathon awesomeness. I'm glad that we have more disabled representation in comics. That's really cool. I did, in spite of not getting very much reading done at all, manage to play 5 new board games this week. Which is just kind of ridiculous on the face. Okay, so the first game that I played that was new to me was one that we bought when we went to Shucks, and it is called Everdell. It is a pretty light Euro game that mostly just involves worker placement, and you are different groups of woodland animals placing your workers on different buildings and taking actions in order to gain the most victory points. this is going to sound very similar to a lot of the other games that I play, just because this is such a common board game mechanic. And I think that this game is fine mechanically for what it is. I think where it really shines is in the artwork, which truly makes it a stunning object. There's an entire board that is set up to look like a forest clearing, and different cards for the actions that you take go in different spots in the clearing. And there's a three-dimensional, like, buildable, sculpted tree that is totally unnecessary for playing the game, but just makes the experience that much better because it's so aesthetically pleasing that you're just like, wow, I can't believe I get to play around in this world. And also the meeples are adorably sculpted. They're all different like woodland animal groups, and I played as these cute little hedgehogs and I love them so much. I thought that the game was fun. It was pretty simple, especially playing it as a 2-player game, and I was kind of left wanting some more in terms of decision making, but I know that there is one expansion out that we already have that adds more nuance to the gameplay, and then there are 2 more coming out. Their Kickstarter just wrapped up, so I am definitely excited to play it with the expansion and see how that changes the gameplay, because I liked it. I just want it to be more, so that's a good problem to have, I guess. Then Sean and I went to our local board game cafe and we played 2 new games. One was called Vast the Mysterious Manor, and this is a really interesting concept for a game. It's an asymmetrical game, so every person that's playing it is playing a different group and they all play totally differently. In our 2-player game, Sean was playing as the paladin and I was playing as the spider. The paladin's job is to kill the spider, and that's how they win. And the spider's job is to get the terror inside the mysterious manor up to 12 and then escape the manor, and that's how they win. There are a lot of other factions too that you can play as in this game because it is asymmetrical and it is supposed to be a big variety, including playing as the mysterious manor itself. I am really interested to see how that works out, but I don't think that the game worked super well as it. But anyway, that was just a first impression. I definitely was intrigued by the premise of the game. You're going around, you can't see really what's in front of you as you're flipping over tiles and discovering treasures or traps or all sorts of different things. As the spiders, one of the cool things that my group could do is I could just feast on blood, so I guess I could just go around and find like corpses in the mansion maybe to suck blood from, and I could use it to like feed my baby spider eggs and hatch them, or I could use it to scare people and instill fear in them and make the terror level go up, and that was really cool. And I did kind of see where that faction was going by the end of the game when I had figured it out, so I would like to play it again. I think I would like to play it again though at a higher player count, because I think that the interesting interactions that this game is supposed to be really well known for are gonna come out and really shine when it's with more than just 2 players. With 2, I didn't think it was very good for just 2. Gonna take a little tea break. That's pretty good. Usually I don't like chocolate teas that much, but this is decent. And then the other game that we played at our board game cafe was called Reykholt, and that is another Uwe Rosenberg game. So shocker, it's a farming themed Euro game where you are spending your actions to vegetable farm in this case, and then converting those farming actions into points. This game, however, was just so delightful. It is, again, pretty simple. It's a very basic worker placement kind of thing where you're moving your workers around and building these greenhouses that you use to build vegetables. And then the concept is that you are like trying to attract tourists to your vegetable garden in Iceland. So you spend these vegetables to move your little restaurateur ahead on your tourism track, and that's how you win. Which it's like, okay, we just came up with new words to describe the same thing that all of his other games have in common. But it was just so freaking cute that it didn't even really matter that much to me. I don't think that I've ever had this much fun trying to grow tomatoes. Like, if you've ever tried to grow tomatoes in real life, it can be pretty stressful. Tomatoes are technically, I think, a beginner vegetable, but they're really hard to grow successfully. In this game, it gives you all of the satisfaction of growing tomatoes without as much of the heartache, which I thought was just really cool. We played the 2-player version of the game. I know it does go up to 4, and I would be interested to play it that way, But what I'm really interested to play is that there is a story mode for this game as well that adds in, I think, some quest mechanisms and quest objectives. And I don't know about you, but there's just something that is so cozy and charming about the idea of being a questing little vegetable farmer on a quest to farm the most carrots and lettuces. I'm dying just talking about this. It's so cute. It was so sweet. I loved it so much. Okay, I need to calm down just a little bit. I wouldn't mind having this game added to my collection. I'm glad that I tried it first without having to commit to buying a new game, but I would love to have this game and just bring it out when I want to play something where I can just sort of turn my brain off and enjoy the ride. So the next game we played was a new game that just finally got delivered after their Kickstarter that I ordered in advance, and that is called Nanty Narking, a Victorian game of wit and pod snappery. This game is pretty interesting, actually. It is a redevelopment of a game that came out, I want to say more than 10 years ago now, that was set in Terry Pratchett's Discworld. Well, they decided to redevelop this game and set it in Victorian London. And basically what it is a hidden role deduction kind of game where on your turn you are just playing cards, taking an action, and then moving on. It's sort of asymmetric in the sense that almost every character will have, or almost every player will play as a different character that has different objectives for winning the game. So if you're playing as Fagin from Oliver Twist, for example, you win the game when there are enough trouble markers on the board because your like army of street urchins and pickpockets, I guess, is just going around causing trouble. If you play as one of the 3 lords in the game, you win when you control more than half of the territories in the city because you're rich, and that's how rich people win. I guess they just build a lot of shit and control a bunch of people throughout the city. If you play as Sherlock Holmes, you win if you are basically just able to thwart everyone else's designs by the time that the player card draw pile runs out. I did think that this game, again, was too simple at 2 players because it was pretty easy to figure out really quickly the character that the other person was playing, and with the exception of a couple of cards in the deck, I don't think that it's easy to change your role within the game. Usually you're just randomly dealt a role at the beginning of the game, and that's the one that you have to stick with until the end. So if you're playing with just 2 people, it can be pretty easy to figure out what's going on, and also you're kind of just all over the map by the end of the game, and there just didn't seem to be too much to it, if that makes sense. Things that I did enjoy about the game, though, is that I think this is going to be a really fun game to play in a bigger group. It is very simple, I will say that, but I think that the sort of the drama of trying to figure out who your fellow players are playing as and trying to undo their designs and the player interaction is going to be not complex, but certainly more interesting at higher player counts. Another thing that I adore about this game, and this is kind of what drew me to back it in the first place, whether that's a good decision or not, time will tell, is the production quality of the miniatures is amazing. So as you're going around placing buildings on the board and putting your agents out onto this map of London, every single one of your agents is a miniature that's a unique sculpt, and the attention to detail and like historical and period accuracy in this really pleased me as somebody that knows a lot about the Victorian period, is a huge enthusiast, and has studied that in school. Really just pleased me. There are suffragettes, there is a little tosher fellow that's popping out of a manhole cover as he's diving for junk. There's a little match girl, there's a gentleman, a jockey, all different kinds of characters. And all of the cards are artwork and names of characters from Victorian novels, except for Moll Flanders, who is an 18th century protagonist, yet for some reason she made it into this game. I don't know if somebody just decided to include her anyway, or if they missed that on research, but yeah, Moll Flanders isn't Victorian, but pretty much everybody else in this game is from like a Charles Dickens novel, an Arthur Conan Doyle novel, any of those other Victorian novelists that wrote about urban London. So that was Nancy Narking. The next game, and this is the last one that I played this week, was actually kind of a replay, but Sean and I picked Pandemic Legacy Season 2 back up again. I did talk about Season 1 a while ago, back when we finished playing it, probably about when I first started this BookTube channel, but essentially it plays very similarly to the regular Pandemic games, which I have talked about previously as well, except that with the Legacy game, you alter the game components as you play through basically what is a story campaign. So as you play through the campaign, you write on cards, you put stickers on the board, you tear up cards depending on decisions that you make and the consequences that those decisions have. I'm gonna call out spoiler alert right now. If you don't want to know anything else about Pandemic Legacy Season 2, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and feel free to click away now. But if you are not too worried about very minor spoilers for the game, then stay. So, you have been warned. Essentially, the idea behind Pandemic Legacy Season 2 is that it's 70 years after the world has succumbed to these plagues that have decimated human population. And you play as a small group of survivors that are eking out a living on these haven ships off the coasts of all of the world's continents, and you are trying to reestablish contact with the survivors that are left on the various continents around the world. Where we're at in the game, we are just now starting to uncover more continents than just the coastline, so we were actually able to establish contact with North and South America, which is pretty cool. But this game just keeps throwing us for loops. I do think that while the theme for this game isn't as strong as Pandemic Legacy Season 1, the gameplay loop is still really compelling, because I'm very often felt like even though I lose about every other game that I play, I still feel like if I had just kept going, or if one thing had just been slightly different, I could have won. So even losing in this game is really satisfying to me. And that, I think, is one of the hallmarks of a good game and a good Legacy game, is that even when you fail, you still feel like you got something amazing out of it, and you still feel like narratively the story has progressed. So if you lose your first game in a month, which is a period of time that the game designates, you get to replay that month one more time before moving on to the next month. Right now we're about to replay March, which we are probably going to do tonight. But that is something that I missed doing, and I really am enjoying getting to play that again. So that is going to do it for this week's Geekly Wrap-Up. I'm assuming that since Magic in the Middle Ages has, I think, maybe 50 Goodreads reviews, not many of you watching have read it. If you have, please do let me know, because we can join the literal tens of people reviewing it on Goodreads. And let me know what you thought of any of these board games that I talked about. Let me know if you've played any of them, if any of them look cool to you, or any other ones that I haven't talked about you think I would be interested in. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.